As part of today's session, we are going to discuss about the agile process. In the last session, right? So just we have discussed the difference between the waterfall model and the agile model. So while talking about the agile model, I told so the change in requirement is possible. So whenever we are working in agile, so the requirement can be changed at any point. So basically, right? So initially, so they will be launching the base application in a market, and post that they will be keep on adding multiple feature to that particular application. If you notice each and every update, right? So we will be getting a new feature. So for example, if you take the WhatsApp, so initially when they launch, so the primary purpose was only for the chatting. But now if you see day by day, they keep on updating. So in the latest update, even the broadcast feature is introduced, the payment feature is introduced. So likewise, they are introducing multiple feature. So basically, in an agile, so we always work in a feature wise, okay, or also we call it as an epic. So we will be working on complete epic. So for example, let's say, so the Amazon is planning to introduce Amazon pay later option to the customer. So this is a new feature they are going to introduce in the market. So in order to like introduce this new feature, so they may derive multiple tasks. So technically we call task as a user story. Okay, so generally, so they will the business analyst will derive multiple user story. So the requirement is to deliver the Amazon Pay Later option. So in order to deliver this requirement, so they have splitted up the requirement into multiple parts. So which we call it as a task, or technically we call it as an user story. So whenever there is a feature, so they will be splitting up into multiple components. Okay, and we are going to work on each and every component. So which is nothing but, so the business analyst will split up into multiple user story. So when the developer is working on the user story one, so we used to do the design activities. So once they completed this particular user story one, so they will be picking up the user story two. So during that time, what we used to do, so we used to do the during that time, we used to complete the testing activity. In similar way, so when they pick on the user story 3, right? So generally, we will be completing the testing activity of user story 2, as well as by combining this both user story, so we may complete the testing as well. And also, we will be club the user story 1 and 2, and we will be doing the integration testing as well. So what happened in the sense, so whenever the developer complete the particular epic, parallelly we are performing the testing activity. So that is what I told. So in a agile process, the development and the testing activities take place parallelly. Okay, so we will be having a feature, we are going to work on the feature. So in order to work on the feature, so they will be splitting up the feature into multiple user story. So inside the user story, so the business analyst will mention so what we need to develop and what we need to test. So generally, right, we are going to pick the user story and we are going to work on the user story. Okay, and how we are going to work? So for example, let's say in order to deliver this particular feature, so the business analyst have derived total of 15 user story. So one and only if this 15 user story is completed, so we can say the particular epic is completed. And how we are going to work on this 15 user story? Are we going to randomly pick up the user story? So that is not the case, right? So generally, we will be following some process. So generally, right, in an agile, so it always work on the sprint model, or we also call it as an iteration. Okay. Sprint is nothing but for easy understanding. So have in mind it is kind of an duration. Okay, so they are going to split the duration. So they are going to plan the activities like kind of an 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks. Okay, so before start of the project, so they will be splitting up the duration, so which is nothing but they will be splitting up the sprint. So in a project we will be having an multiple sprint. So let's say like the sprint 1, the sprint 2, then sprint 3, like we will be having like multiple sprint, and in each and every sprint like we are going to work on some specific feature. Okay, and what is the duration of the sprint is like? So it will be like kind of an either 2 to 4 weeks. Okay, so they will be fixing the duration. So for example, consider like our project is kind of an 3 week sprint. So 3 weeks in the sense like we will be having like 15 working days. So as a team, like we are going to plan what we are going to do in this next 15 days. So in this feature, like we are having total of 15 user story. So are we able to complete this 15 user story with this within this 15 days? So that's not the case, right? So because like so whenever we pick some epic or feature, so generally we will be working on multiple sprint. So let's say like in the sprint 1, like we may pick some 7 user story, and in the sprint 2 like we may pick some 8 user story. So which means in order to complete certain feature, so like we may require multiple sprint, and whenever we complete that particular feature, so we may work on the next feature. So generally like we are going to deliver the product in feature wise, and on what basis like we will be deciding like how much user story we can complete, and how we are going to decide as a team like how much user story that we can complete in a particular sprint. So sprint is nothing but have in mind it is kind of a duration, like generally like so the duration of the sprint is like 3 weeks. So generally majority of the project follows the 3 week sprint, which is nothing but the 15 working days. So in order to plan the number of user story before starting each and every sprint in an agile, so we will be having the call called as an sprint planning call. Okay, so this is the first call which is involved in an agile. So what is the need of the sprint planning call? So the need of the sprint planning call is like to plan the activities for the particular sprint. So why we are planning the activities for the particular sprint? Because one and only if we plan the activities, so we will be on track to complete the particular feature within the committed time. So let's say so like how the sprint planning call is going to work. So as I told, the planning call is nothing but we are going to plan the activity. So like who are all going to join in the sprint planning call? So as the user stories are created by the business analyst, so the business analyst is joining. So the developers are going to develop the certain thing, so the developers will be joining, and QA is going to test the particular user story. So the development team, the testing team, and the business analyst team will be joining the sprint planning call. But the sprint planning call will be organized by the person called as an scrum master. Okay, so whenever like we say agile, so we will be having the scrum master. So scrum master is nothing but he is the head of the agile, and he will be taking care of the entire team. So like he will taking care of the business analyst, the development team, and the QA team. So altogether he is responsible for delivering the project. So for example, like if we take a college or school as an example, so in a college, let's say, so the head is kind of a principal, and under him like all the HODs will be reporting up. So the different like departments HODs will be reporting to the, so altogether he is managing the entire college. Okay, so in similar way, like in an agile, so we are having the scrum master who is going to manage all the activities. So generally, so this sprint planning call will be scheduled by the scrum master, but this planning call will be always run by the business analyst. Okay, so what this business analyst used to do in the sense, so they are going to explain each and every user story. So which is nothing but they are going to elaborate the user story. They will give the walkthrough. Okay, so they will pick one user story and they will be giving the walkthrough, like what is the agenda of the user story. So what is the outcome? So what we need to develop and what we need to test. So everything the business analyst will be explaining about that particular user story. And post the explanation, as a team, like we need to provide an estimate. Okay, so estimate is nothing but so the time required to complete the particular user story. Okay, so how much time we required, so like estimate in the sense, so the dev team will provide the dev estimate and the QA team will provide the QA estimate. And how we are going to provide the estimate in the sense, by story points. Okay, and one more thing is like, so before starting this call, so always, so the scrum master will calculate the capacity of the team. So capacity of the team in the sense, so like he will check for the availability of the team members. So let's say like in a team we are having two business analysts and a kind of and five developers and three QAs. Like he will check the availability of each and every one, and based upon that he will deriving the capacity of the team. So let's say, okay, so if the business analyst is available for all 15 days, so the number of working days in the sprint is like kind of an 15 days. The Scrum Master will check the availability of each and every member. So for example, let's say, so he is checking the availability of the business analyst. So the business analyst, the person one is available for 15 days, but the person two has some planned leave. So which means like he will available only for the 13 days. So altogether, so the BA team capacity is like kind of an 18 days, and they will consider it as an 18 points. So 18 points in the sense, so like how the Scrum Master calculate in the sense, so they will consider 1 point as an 8 hours. Okay, so 1 point as an 8 hours. So in similar way, like he will calculate the overall team capacity. So let's say altogether, like our team capacity is like kind of an like 60 points. Okay, so 60 points in the sense, so like per day, like it is kind of an 8 hours. So which means like they will be calculating based on that. So you don't need to worry about this points calculation. So generally like the project management tool will automatically calculate it, because like project to project, so the point will be differ. So in some project they will be having 1 point as in 5 hours or 6 hours, etc. So have in mind, so they are going to calculate the team capacity. So the reason why they are like calculating the team capacity in the sense, so that like they can plan the user stories accordingly. Okay, so now consider that like they are going to do the planning activity for the sprint one, and the available team capacity is like 60 points. So even like we need to estimate the uh, effort in a story points. So the development team for suppose the elaboration for the user story one. So the development team is telling like they required a 5 points. Okay, so which means like all together. So in order to complete the development activities, so they required the 5 points. So which means like it is considering all dev effort. So now From the QA side, like we will be providing our own point. So let's say like we are providing the 3 points. So altogether, in order to complete this particular user story one, so we need the 8 points. So which means so the remaining capacity will be like 52 points. In similar way, so the business analyst will explain the user story too and post elaboration like we need to provide the estimate. So let's say the dev required like 3 points and the QA required 2 points. So altogether, like we may require like kind of 5 points to complete this particular user story. And what will be the remaining points? So the remaining points will be like kind of an 48 points. Okay, so the planning call will be keep on running so till we satisfy this point, because like we are having the bandwidth, so like we need to satisfy this bandwidth. So whenever you are providing the estimate, so we should provide the proper estimate so that like it won't burden the team. So we should be always cautious like while providing the estimate. Okay, so now assume that altogether in the sprint one, so you have picked the total of like 7 user story. So which means like within this 15 working days at any cost, so both the development as well as the testing activity should be completed for this particular 7 user stories. Okay, so which means like we need to complete all planned activities. So in this particular sprint, like we are going to work on the 7 user story. In similar way, like post completion of the 15 days, so the next sprint starts. So which means like even for this sprint, like we will be having 15 days of time frame. So before start of each and every sprint, so again like we will be having the sprint planning call, and in this planning call we are going to plan the activities for the sprint 2. Okay, so before each and every sprint, so like we will be always having the planning call. So when this planning call will be take place in the sense before start of each and every sprint. So generally, right, this planning call may be take place close to 3 hours. Okay, so because like why we are spending like more hours in the planning call in the sense, because the planning should be effective. So one and only if the planning is correct, so the next 15 days is utilized properly. So if the planning itself wrong, so then like we are getting like deviated from our delivery. So that is why like they are spending more time in the planning. Okay, and post planning is completed, the actual sprint starts. And in some project, so they will be calling the sprint also as an iteration. Okay, so iteration or iteration. So iteration 1, iteration 2. So generally in an agile, it always follows 2 week sprint or 3 week sprint or 4 week sprint. Okay, so based upon that, so like they will be picking on the number of user story. If the team size is high, so then capacity of the team will be high, then they will be picking up multiple user story. So how they are picking the user story in the sense only based upon the team capacity. Okay, so post elaboration, like they will be estimate the story points, and they will be allocating the respective story point to the particular user story. Okay, so whatever the theoretical discussion like which we are discussing right now, so I will be show you like how we are going to follow this process in a project management tool. So as part of our training, like I am going to use the Jira as a project management tool. So and you will be getting a better relativity, so once I show everything in the Jira board. And one more point like I forgot to highlight is like, so generally, right? So I told we are working in a feature wise, or we also call it as an epic. So where they will be storing the feature in the sense, so we will be having some place called as an product backlog. Okay, so inside the product backlog, so there will be multiple epics. Okay, so our multiple epics, or we call it as a feature. So let's say like we are having 5 epics, and under each and every epics, like we will be having the multiple user story. And one and only if the particular epic is completed, we will be delivering the product to the end customer. Okay, so the epic can be completed in a single sprint or a multiple sprint. So once particular epic is completed, then we will be picking up the next epic. So as the requirement is not fixed in agile, so the new epic will be keep on adding by the business analyst based upon the business need. So like the sprint count will be keep on increasing. So for example, let's say like in my project currently we are working on like sprint number 25. So which means based upon the project need, so the sprint will be keep on increasing. Okay, so now how they are going to track the activities, like how whether we are able to complete this 7 user story or not. So what the scrum master used to do, like once the sprint is started, on daily basis, like he will connect with the entire team. And how he will connect with the entire team in the sense by scheduling the like scrum call. Okay, so we call it as an scrum call or daily stand up call. Okay, so this call is obviously scheduled by the scrum master, and as usual, like the business analyst and the development team and the QA team is going to join on what is the purpose of the Scrum call. So generally, it will take place. Uh, Generally, the Scrum call will take place on daily basis. So the duration of the call will be kind of an 15 minutes. So like what we are going to do in this 15 minutes in the sense, like we are going to provide individual update. Okay, so like you are going to provide an individual update. So update is nothing but so like what you are working, when you will complete that particular work, post completing the particular work, so what is the next work you are going to pick up, and do you have any blockers, and do you have any clarifications. Because like if we have any clarifications, as the business analyst is present in the call, either it can be clarified in the particular call itself, or post the call the business analyst can connect with us. So whenever we have some blockers, like we can highlight the blockers in the call and the developers will help us to fix the blockers. So basically in an agile, like we will always have the transparency. Okay, so everyone will get to know so what everyone is working on. So we, because on the regular basis, like we are connecting up. So why we are having the regular connect in the sense, so that the scrum master will ensure like the everything is on track. So which is nothing but like just we are working on the cyclic process. So he is assuming that okay, there is no blockers or any other issues. So the team is in good shape to complete the plan activities. Okay, so that is why the scrum master will connect with the entire team on daily basis. So this is kind of an task update. So like whatever the task we are working on, so we are going to highlight like what is the activity like which you have planned for the day, and what you are going to do after completing the planned activity. So that is why like we always have the scrum call. Okay, so apart from this scrum call, right, so we will be having one another call called as an sprint retrospection. Okay, so what is the need of sprint retrospection, or we call it as an retro call. So this is kind of an feedback call. Okay, so when this retrospection call will happen in the sense at the end of each and every sprint. Okay, at the end of each and every sprint, so this retro call will happen. So as I told, it is kind of an feedback call. So the Scrum Master will collect the feedback from the entire team. So basically, like he focus upon 3 points. So like 3 points in the sense like what went well, so what didn't go well, and do we have any suggestions for team improvement. So we can highlight. So like what went well in the particular sprint, so we can appreciate our team members. And if you feel like something burden up you, so you can highlight those challenges over here. And if you have any suggestions for the betterment for the team improvement, so you can highlight the suggestions. Okay, so the Scrum Master will collect each and every points, and he will consider all the point. So like whenever the planning happens for the next sprint, so whatever the feedback we have highlighted in the last sprint, he will consider the feedback and he will create an optimized sprint. Okay, so like we are keep on optimizing the upcoming sprint, so in order to avoid the burden to the team. So whenever we need something, or whenever like we feel something is like odd, so we can raise our voice, because like agile is transparency in nature. So here there will be a like multiple team connects. So like we always have the sync up with the business analyst, the scrum master, and the development team. So whenever we need something, or whenever we feel something is odd, so we can feel free to highlight. So that is the purpose of the agile. So the agile is like always transparency in nature. So when we say the agile process, like generally like we are having three important call. One is of an sprint planning call, and another is of an like daily scrum call, or third is of an retrospection call. Even apart from this call, so there are multiple calls as are involved, like elaboration call, the discovery call, and then like the defect triage call, mid iteration check call. So those things like we can discuss in the later part. And you may have the question, so like what happened, like we have planned for 7 user story, so if you are unable to complete the few user story, so what is going to happen? Okay, so and in some case, so even when we are working in particular user story, and the developer team is finding some complexity and they are changing the requirement, so what happened? So whenever the change in requirement is happen in a particular user story, so those things like we are going to discuss in the upcoming sessions. Okay, so you will get to know the clear process. Okay, I hope like till this point, so everyone are clear. So generally, right, I will repeat. So in an agile, so like we are going to break up the uh, particular requirement into an user story, and we are going to work in an user story. Okay, or else we have already break the requirement into a multiple epic, and we are breaking the multiple epic into one multiple user story. And inside the user story, like all informations will be available. So I will show you the sample user story in a Jira board, so how the user story will be look like, and post that like you will be having an better understanding.